Okay, great. Let me pull my presentation up. Thank you for joining us today. We're going to be covering 5 steps how to win financially and in life. I'm really excited to be sharing this topic with you today. It's really an important one. As I thought about and kind of pondered what we were going to share with this, I realized that the fact that we do not get very much formal financial education in our schools or elsewhere, unless you happen to be in a finance degree, it really gave me pause to make sure that I put into this my best experiences, but also simplify as much as possible the financial world and really boil it down, bring it down to the foundation of what will help us to be able to win financially. Just a little bit about me. I'm a father. I've got 7 children. Um, been doing this about 6 years. I enjoy working, have the opportunity to work with young professionals, people just getting started right out of college, families, small business owners. What that boils down to is I really work with people and families and businesses on 2 sides of the spectrum. I really work with people that are just getting started and are looking to amass some small fortune in the foreseeable future and start that process. And then people on the other side of the spectrum that are closer to their 50s and 60s and have been working and saving for a number of years and really want to be able to leverage that money in the best way possible so that they can ease into retirement and make that transition. So I've got a few case studies to share with you today and hope that you will find a great benefit from what we'll talk about. These are the 5 areas that we're going to cover. So we're going to start with money and balance. Then we're going to get into strategies for success, the power of residual income, tax advantage savings, and then lastly covering how to refinance your finances. Okay, first area, money and balance. So these are really some alarming statistics that when we look at today's families, these statistics are a few years old, but they're still relevant because things have not changed too much in the last few years. 76% of people live paycheck to paycheck. Over 50% have less than a 3-month reserve. 27% have no savings at all. 48% don't know who to trust for financial advice. 60% of those people 55 and over plan to continue working past the age of 67 for financial reasons. So that creates a whole nother challenge on a lot of different levels. People are living longer and your money has to last a little bit longer. But if people are also continuing to work longer, then that creates another whole nother problem for people that are coming out of college or trying to enter into the workplace. So we're really at an interesting place right now where things have shifted. Companies and how they benefit and compensate their employees, all the way down to people working longer because of some financial crisis that we've suffered over the last 10, 15 years. So a number of things that are playing into that. But today we're just going to keep it simple, like I said, and just kind of do a high-level overview of really what boils down to your foundation and how you can set things up for your success to be able to grow and build. And talking about money and balance, these are the 3 areas we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about your cash flow, debt and savings, and then also taxes. So we'll get into cash flow first. So simply put, spending less than you earn. It sounds pretty easy, but it's a little bit tricky when you get into having to balance your needs, your wants, and your wishes. Keeping things in that proper balance between managing your lifestyle today and saving for tomorrow, at the same time trying to reduce debt, secure a proper insurance protection program in case anything were to happen. There's a lot of factors that go into that, so it gets a bit more complex than somebody just telling you, well, that's easy, just spend less than what you earn. There's a little bit more that goes into that, so I'm going to give you some more details that hopefully will help you with that. The basics for where that resonates or where that really originates is with a budget. So starting with the budget, it just allows you to get a financial snapshot of where you're at right now, where that money's going or not going, and then it's going to help you prioritize as you strategically evaluate those areas of your cash flow. So a couple of tips on how to succeed with a budget. So most people without a proper budget, as your expenses increase, your cost of living increases, so maybe that's a job raise or the business starts to do a little bit better, most people increase their income right along with their expenses, or their expenses right along with their income. I apologize, I said that backwards. It's partly because most people either don't have a budget or their budget, they think that it consists just of their expenses. I find that to be quite demotivating. It's tough to expect to reach really financial goals, important financial goals, without developing a plan for spending and saving. And the way that I like to look at it, that I've helped a lot of clients and I believe helps in general, is to look at it more of like a formula instead of just trying to look at the dollars and cents from a month-to-month standpoint, but to really work hard to create a formula for your success so that as the income does go up, because that's ultimately the goal, and you start to plan and prioritize different items in life, you really have that formula, success formula to carry with you that can grow and is scalable. But getting started with a budget, these 7 steps will help you get started with a budget here. Follow the money, track your spending. It's really, really important to make this realistic. If this is not realistic from day one, then you're going to be out of whack that first month. Things are going to be way off. What I usually recommend is you take 3 average months of typical spending and you average those out to try to get your most accurate monthly budget numbers. Doing a monthly budget is the best way to do it, but you've got to allow for entertainment. You've got to allow for fun. You have to allow for those discretionary items that are important to you, because most likely you're going to spend money on them anyway, and if they're not in the budget, then that'll be money that's unaccounted for and will throw things off from the beginning. Where possible, make your savings contributions automatically. Number 3, define your needs, your wants, and your wishes. 4, pay cash or debit card for discretionary items. We'll get a little bit more into that. 5, strategically pay down expensive debt. It's really best if you can do this right alongside with your day-to-day budget that allows you the leverage to live for today but still plan for tomorrow. But paying down that debt at the same time is huge. Some people think that they'll wait to pay down debt until the income improves a little bit, or they think the other way around, well, I'll just put everything towards debt right now and postpone savings. So what we're talking about here is really finding the best balance, the best blend and balance for both of those things. If there is a significant amount of debt, student loans, car loans, anything else, the best way and the most intelligent way to attack that. Number 6, build a safety net. Number 7, live within your means. That's probably something you've heard from parents and grandparents if you're anything like our family. Next step in cash flow management, it boils down to about 5 areas: income, your fixed expenses, discretionary expenses, taxes, and your savings. So each one of those, oftentimes people will leave their savings out, or they will have a budget, or they'll create a budget and they will say, well, we'll just spend whatever's left over. I believe that you've got to flip that completely on its head and turn that around. Your savings should actually be first. So maybe I should have put that at number 1. But usually people think that your income is first. If you put your savings first and are able to get to a process of being able to live on the rest, it really does create this sort of automatic, beneficial, positive habit that's just reinforcing, and over the years that will yield you dividends for years and years to come. Your fixed expenses, just to touch on what these are, so that would be in the category of the red right here. You could see things like housing, transportation, so certain things that would be fixed where you know those expenses every single month. Most utilities are relatively fixed, so you're going to have to pay them every month, and month to month that number, mortgage, rent, is not going to vary too much. Discretionary expenses, this would be basically everything else. Vacation, entertainment, any incidentals, miscellaneous things, travel, things like that. So all your discretionary expenses would fall under there. Taxes are self-explanatory, and then savings. So making sure that savings is a part of your budget is really important as well. So this is an example budget breakdown. This is not ironclad because it really needs to be personal, and for everybody's benefit, your budget really should be personalized for your needs, your wants, and your wishes, like we talked about earlier. But this is a good guideline for most to kind of get something in place to start, and then, like I said, customize it from there. Okay, so let's jump to the next one. So debt, looking at debt and paying down debt. I've got a simple 2-step approach that's been really beneficial for clients, and it's as simple as this. You have to know your numbers, where you are right now, and stop spending. That sounds simple, but it's really hard. This part is super hard and difficult for people to just get those numbers down on paper and see where they are, what the interest rates are. That's critical to knowing where you are right now, to be able to start to actually plan or prioritize things for the future. The second part is simply to create and implement. So that's where I come in to help you out. The implement part falls in your court, but the create part, that's what I'd love to be able to do for people and help create a debt elimination strategy, like we talked about, that falls in line with their needs for today, allowing for fun, allowing for entertainment, allowing for those important things in life so that they don't feel like every single dollar is locked up like you see in the picture here, but being able to feel really, really good about the thousands of dollars that you're going to save in interest and how many years you're going to shave off paying down debt because you have a strategy and a plan to be able to work towards that. It really isn't about how much money you earn. It's how much you keep that counts. And there's some other interesting variations of that quote, but I really do like this. Setting up things to protect you, specifically things like emergency savings, short-term and long-term savings accounts, to protect you against those curveballs in life. They really do help. I've helped people with smaller incomes that were able to save more, people with larger incomes that save less. So there's all different variations. But again, like I said, it depends on what your priorities are right now. Some people that were saving more, they may have been saving up for a down payment on a home in the near future. So there was a lot going to savings right now, and they were a little bit lopsided there. But as long as that's in line with your priorities, and that's everything's been accounted for, and you know exactly what you're doing there. I'll touch a little bit more in detail on just each of these three savings categories. Emergency reserves, if there's nothing right now, then your goal is 1 month. Your goal is to save 30 days worth of funds to be able to have a 1 month emergency reserves. If you've got that down, your next goal is to go for 3 to 6 months. You can make it a game. You can make it a contest. If you're competitive like my wife and I, you can make it actually a little bit of a game or a competition to see where you can cut and cut back and be able to save some additional monies and funds. During the lean years, growing up with a large family and raising a large family as we have over the last 13 years, there have been some quite lean years. And there was years where that emergency reserves was low or all the way depleted. So you've got to rebuild. You have to retool. So this is kind of an ongoing process throughout life, that emergency reserves. But it is there to protect you. It's there to keep things from having to go on a credit card. The short-term savings would be things where you're saving for 1 to 5 years. It could be a lavish vacation. It could be something that's on your bucket list. Maybe a good-sized home improvement, redoing the kitchen, something like that. But 1 to 5 years is your time horizon for short-term savings. Long-term savings is basically anything 5 to 10 years and beyond. So this is where retirement would start to come into play, college funding, things of that nature. And the last thing we want to talk about as far as balance goes is taxes. This triangle pyramid that you see in front of you here, so this I pulled from what's called a smart money list. So a lot of people at your employer, if you do work for a company, a formal organization, company like that, they typically are going to give you a 401k with a matching provision. That matching provision is where this first pyramid, the orange or gold pyramid, comes from. Really, that's free money. So if they're going to match dollar for dollar or 50 cents on the dollar up to 3% or 5 or 6%, that is free money. The best advice that I could give you is to always take advantage of that first. The second line on the smart money list would be this green triangle right here, which is called tax advantaged money. So tax advantaged money would be money that you pay taxes on right now, something like a Roth IRA or permanent life insurance, and then that money is able to grow tax deferred, and then you would not have to pay taxes on that in the future. Those are structured properly. Third would be tax deferred money. So these are probably things that you've heard of, IRAs, individual retirement accounts, or your 401k accounts at work. So these are all tax deferred. That money is coming out of a paycheck prior to any taxes being withheld. Those taxes are being deferred on an annual basis, meaning that you do not have to report and pay taxes each year on those. That money is able to grow tax deferred. And then you can access that money down the road in those qualified accounts or tax deferred accounts after the age of 59 and a half. So that's how those plans work. The last one on the smart money list is taxable money. So this is money, it's really the least efficient way to save and invest, but this is typically what falls into stocks, bonds, mutual funds, things that have to get reported on an annual basis for those earnings and pay taxes on that. The capital gains, the short-term, long-term, that's where they all come in, would be in this taxable money bucket. So smart money list, if you had your choice, you'd go basically from the gold to green to blue to purple in that order, 1, 2, 3, 4, working down the list to be able to leverage and help your dollar that you're working hard for go as far as possible. Next, I'm excited to get in and cover with you some strategies for your success. This principle is one that my grandfather shared with me long before I was in the financial business, and I did not understand even a little bit of what he was talking about until I started to raise a larger family and go through some of my own financial successes and struggles and really learned firsthand what this meant. But it's an amazingly powerful principle, and as I started to dive more into it, I realized that it's been around for as long as I could find. So it's really one of those timeless financial principles. It's been passed down through our family. It's been used, I've seen it in families over and over again to secure financial independence, run prudent businesses, and retire with additional security. Set aside money for investing, retirement, college, a down payment, whatever requires a longer term effort, and then being disciplined to live on the rest. So this principle of paying yourself first, it really treats you as if you were the most important bill or line item in your budget. And I believe that you are. So why shouldn't you treat yourself that way? So paying yourself first, some of the best strategies, best practices that I've found for clients is to create an account that is separate from all your other accounts. Determine how much you want to put into that account and at what interval. So a lot of savings programs can be maybe monthly, quarterly, depending on how the income comes into your household or business. Put that money in on that interval, but stay consistent. And then put that money into an account as soon as it's available. So it just leaves a little less room for something else to come up or life to start to chip away at it. If there's something else that becomes a little bit more attractive or enticing, that money may be spoken for. But it's good to get it in and save it. And then the last step, step 4, is just to leave it alone. And sometimes that's the hardest one. In addition to that, I wanted to just touch briefly on the power of compound interest. And this probably is something that you've heard about, but maybe you haven't understood. But there's a really simple financial formula for you to be able to see how long it takes for your money to double. So whatever investment you're considering or whatever you're taking a look at, if you divide that expected rate of return by 72, that will give you the number of years that money would take to double. So I don't want to go into any quick examples or anything like that, but pretty simple and straightforward. It's one of the most powerful financial formulas or calculations, if you will, that are out there. Albert Einstein actually called compound interest. That's basically what this is, this doubling factor, the 8th wonder of the world. So he was a pretty smart guy, some people think. I'm excited. I want to share with you actually a couple case studies. I've been able to meet a lot of just amazing people, business owners and families, and I had some people that I got their permission. I've obviously changed their names, but to be able to share a little bit about their stories and their scenarios, because I really wanted to make this applicable and real and something that you could use and benefit from and really see how people, as they go through different things and changes, how they were able to persevere and get into a better place. So this case study number 1 is basically titled, Where Do We Begin? So this is somebody, and my wife and I have been there before ourselves. Somebody that you've been in a place financially where you really don't even know where to start. Things may seem pretty bleak or grim right now, and you just don't know even where to go, where to take that first step. Everything you do seems to just kind of compound on the negative side of things. We just talked about compound interest. But it seems to help go in the other direction and work against you. But Mr. and Mrs. Green here were married in their mid-30s with 2 kids, 13 and 9 years old. He was an operations engineer at a water treatment company and a part-time musician, and she was a nurse. Combined income was $110,000. Total expenses were $105,000. A lot of months they would come up short because that extra $7,000 to get them to that $110,000 actually came from his music career that wasn't always consistent. So there was months where things were going on a credit card. There were some student loans that we're trying to tackle. All together, you could see there that next line down, the problem. They had debt totaling $25,000 between credit cards and student loans. They knew that there had to be a better way of attacking everything, and after sitting down together, they were happy to learn that there was. The first thing that we did was stopping the bleeding, having a real conversation just about the basics, their wants versus their needs, ensuring their most valuable asset, which at this time was their income. They had no life insurance in place, so we had a discussion about that and why that makes sense as they start to get to a place to build for their future, how important that would be if anything happened to either one of them that income would need to continue for their family, especially in the limited savings that they were in right now. We did a full debt elimination plan together that started to attack their debt, and we were able to find some other funds inside of their budget and completing a budget that they were able to put towards that debt and create a few extra dollars for that life insurance as well, which was really, really minimal. We kept that really cost effective with just term insurance, but we protected the income and we put in place what they needed to be able to take care of their basic needs. And for me, this is really my passion. It's driving force behind it, why I do it. When we reviewed their budget and their numbers that they wanted so bad just to begin correcting everything, this was, I think, about our second or third meeting. And typically have about a 2 or 3 meeting process when I meet with people. 3 if it's a bit more complicated, but usually we can take care of most things in 2. So if I recall right, it was about our second meeting. They called me a few days later, said they were going to actually put the house up for sale, that they were that committed to getting out of debt as fast as they could. And fortunately for them, their house sold quick. And the equity in the home, they were able to take that, pay off the debt immediately, and immediately have a bit of an emergency savings account that they continue to grow that now that the debt was taken care of. The profit for the sale of the house paid off that debt and established an emergency fund, and then they worked on the rest of it as they continued on. It's been really, really fun to connect them and kind of keep in touch with them and their path as they get into a better spot. They've since moved down south on the East Coast and are in a very good place financially. They've saved up and bought a home. And it's really exciting to know that you're able to be there and be that person for somebody, but more exciting to see that somebody is having some real success and feeling really good about that hard-earned money, that they do work so many hours in a day, a month, a year to be able to care for their family. The second one that I wanted to share with you, and I mentioned that I kind of help people on 2 sides of the spectrum. So that first case study was really the first where people are just kind of getting started. There's no savings right now. There's some debt, student loans and credit card, and they don't know where to begin. So the second case study is the other side of the spectrum I mentioned at the beginning of this, where people are really on the downside if you look at that bell curve, and they're starting to trend down. They have maybe a 5 to 10 year window till retirement, and they've got a pretty good nest egg saved, and they're now starting to think, well, what do I do with that money? How do I make this money that I've earned over the last 20, 30, 40 years last the next 30 or 40 years of my retirement, factoring in taxes and everything else that needs to be considered? So this is what we're able to do for Mr. and Mrs. Purple. Married, mid-50s, planning for retirement, 4 to 6 years. They want to make sure that they can make the right moves now just to make that transition as easy as possible, but know how to recreate their income when that paycheck stops. So it's really easy to think about getting up and going to work the next day and having that paycheck continue. And we're going to talk a little bit more later on about residual income and how powerful that is. But for most people, what happens is when they stop going to work, the paycheck stops. So they actually have to create a plan. I call it a decumulation plan, to be able to strategically plan for where that income is going to be recreated or pulled from so that they can continue to live and cover their expenses. Currently, they have just over $1 million saved between their 401ks and other savings vehicles, and they wanted to know really how to protect what they've earned, but use those funds with their other income sources to be able to efficiently fund their retirement and also maintain their beach house that they purchased a few years ago. So what we did for them is we established actually 2 private pension accounts. It's something that has been around for a little over 20 years here in the US, but it's been around quite longer abroad and overseas in different areas. But we have the ability to actually create a private pension for people that don't have one anymore. With the changing environment, with people and their work, companies that used to offer pensions now are not. They've gone specifically to traditional 401k plans, and it's a little bit scary because that puts a lot of the risk, a lot of the concern on us to basically whatever your full-time job is. Now you're also a financial advisor, investment advisor, whether you knew it or not. And it's a little bit scary. But what we were able to do for them was to create a private pension account and do a tax-free rollover of about $500,000, so about half of that $1 million, into a vehicle that protects their savings, so that money will never be lost. We've got it out of the market and it's protected, but that will also generate a guaranteed $3,000 a month for comfortable retirement when they combine that with Social Security and their other income sources that they will have. This allows their other $500,000 of investments to be able to continue to participate in the market as things go good. The market does get good years. It's going to fluctuate. It's more like a roller coaster. But they can target a more conservative return because we've done some good pre-planning here to be able to help them set and structure everything up. So the why I do it for these folks, aside from being an amazing couple, it just truly brings me joy and satisfaction to help people just be able to set a safe and secure plan for retirement. And when you think about spending 30 or 40 years to accumulate a nest egg, we rarely put anywhere near the required time that's needed just to make sure that that money will last the next 30 years or more in retirement. So some advanced planning here offered them the peace of mind, saving money in taxes, reduced the stock market risks, and just gave them really good feeling about having a nice, comfortable retirement. And they're perfectly on target for their 4 to 6 year window. The next area that I want to jump to is tax advantage savings. Let's head over there. So the green triangle. So this was number 2 on our smart money list. So once you've reached that company match at your 401k, what's the next step? So if you're following down that list and you go from free money, now you're in the tax advantage money. What most people do is they continue to fund their 401k. And when you continue to fund your 401k past the match, that's not a bad thing. Again, it's got to be, there's no one size fits all option. It's got to be personalized and customized for you and your goals. But typically people will jump from number 1 to number 3. When you fund your 401k past the company match, you go straight from free money to tax deferred money. So you've skipped number 2 completely, whether that is a Roth IRA or permanent life insurance. It's got to be the right fit and designed properly. But you've totally skipped number 2, and it's not a good fit for everybody. But where that does make sense, it can be a really, really powerful option. And there's some really unique tax advantages that I wanted to touch on a bit more, looking at these types of vehicles for you. The other reason that this is important is every minute that a wealthy person or rich person spends researching an investment, they spend about 10 minutes planning how to reduce their taxes. So we've heard of compound interest, and we talked about it a little bit here. We've also heard of tax deferral. We just mentioned that. There's a big difference in what we're talking about as far as deferring taxes or actually leveraging tax advantage and tax-free strategies for your future. But it's not always about saving more, investing more, or doing that. If you can actually find ways to spend less in taxes, then you can actually do more with your money. And that's what a lot of wealthy people have found out. They typically, on average, will pay far less in taxes. A common person may think it's really because they've spent the time investing and setting up and sitting down with their CPA to be able to find the best vehicles and strategies to help them save on taxes. So they're really leveraging that hard-earned money the best they can. When we look at a tax advantage strategy, this is the best way to explain it. So conceptually, if you'll follow along with me here, it's really the difference between if you were a farmer thinking about paying taxes on a bag of seed versus that entire crop when you harvest your crop. And the way that a traditional IRA or a 401k is set up is you pay taxes on the entire harvest. So if you were a farmer and you thought about that question, really which would be more beneficial to you, or which would you lean towards, paying taxes on the seed or the harvest? And most people would go to number 2. So things like a Roth IRA, where historically we're at pretty low tax rates. And if you were to pay taxes today, let that money grow in a tax deferred vehicle, and then not have to pay taxes on that money in the future. That's the difference. So there's basically, you're paying taxes on just the initial investment of your principal that goes in. Here we're calling that the seed, or the harvest. So everything is coming out of an existing paycheck or being funded into an IRA or 401k pre-tax. And then that money grows tax deferred. But at some point, we know we have to pay taxes at some point sooner or later. And it's a choice of paying them now or later. The tax deferred growth, then after age 59 and a half, that money does all have to come out, and every dollar that comes out is going to get taxed. I don't know if you're anything like me, but I've got my certain beliefs. I won't go into too many of those or too many specifics about where tax rates may go, but it is a bit alarming when you start to see things like our national debt and Social Security running out of money and different things that are quite alarming and concerning And next to the baby boomer generation, the younger generation is the biggest. Generation X and Y is the largest. So that a lot of times people just focus on the baby boomer generation, but I tend to look a little bit beyond that and think that, well, if they're going to start to have to take care of some of these pretty monumental things, there's probably a good chance that at least in some capacity, tax rate could potentially go up in the future. And again, it's got to be the right thing. We talked about balance early on in this webinar, and that's such a huge piece here, because if you're talking about an existing 401k plus something like this that's a tax advantage type of a strategy, blending these two together can be super, super powerful and beneficial for your future. So I don't want in any way try to persuade somebody to say one over the other, all your eggs in one basket. I'm a big believer in having things being properly balanced and diversified, especially when we're talking about taxes. And not being a CPA, that's my disclaimer to let you know that we're talking about taxes as far as their on the monies that you make, income taxes, and the savings and investment vehicles that you take a look at. So if we're saving tax-free or tax advantage, like what we're talking about here, there's essentially two options. First option is what you just saw on the previous slide, is a Roth IRA. Roth IRA is good. It does have some limitations, but it is a good option. Some people like it because they're able to still participate in the stock market and they're able to pick and choose what that money is invested into. But it does have limitations. So currently the cap is $5,500 a year. If you're under 55, you're able to put that much money in. You have an extra $1,000 catch-up provision once you start to get a little bit older. But keeping it pretty simple, just think $5,500 a year for a Roth IRA. But there's also income limits with that. So I've actually had a few clients that have started to contribute to a Roth IRA and then got to a point where their income and the business had picked up and their family income increased, and they actually had a pile of money sitting there in the Roth IRA that they weren't allowed to contribute to anymore. So the Roth IRA, just be cautious of that. It can income discriminate if you get to a point where that adjusted gross income starts to get a little bit higher. Adjusted gross income is around $183,000 as we sit right now, October 2016. So that could change in the future. We've got an election around the corner. Things like that could change with different candidates, but for the most part, that's the nuts and bolts of a Roth IRA. It's a great vehicle. It's a great tool. Second option you would have is a permanent life insurance contract. This is something that wouldn't be limited to income, so you're able to put as little or as much into this. It just has to be structured properly, and then it really does have to be an underlying need for life insurance. So if there's a family or a business interest, these types of vehicles, the insurance companies, they do look for that. They used to, I guess in days long ago, very wealthy would use these as a bit of a tax dodge, and that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about using these to save for your future in a tax advantage basis, but really there should be an underlying need for life insurance first and foremost, and then working with a competent insurance professional. If you have one, awesome, and they can be able to help you through and show you some examples of what it would look like to project out. These vehicles really work best if you have at least 20 or 30 year time horizon for that money to grow and compound. So that's enough about those two. Excited to get in now. I wanted to talk to you about power of residual income. And this is huge. This is so exciting. We know and we love doTERRA, and I'm so excited to be doing this webinar for the EO Movement team. But let's talk about residual income for a second, because this is amazing, and this is really what started to get my attention as my lovely wife started to continue to excel and grow in her doTERRA business. I watched this webinar from a gentleman that I'll show you in just a few slides, but it was so amazing, and it resonated so well with me being in the financial world that it really got me excited to help her continue to help other people, which is awesome because it helps them help their health. We're helping people in a number of different ways, but the power of residual income is super, super amazing. If you're looking at $50 residual income, so these different bonus levels, 50, 250, and 1500, without going too much into the financial structure of doTERRA's amazing compensation plan. The $50 bonus, so that $50 residual income, is basically the equivalent of having $8,000 in a bank account earning 7% interest. Pretty powerful when you think about that. And it jumps up exponentially from there. $250 residual income, that bonus is the equivalent of $40,000 in a bank account earning 7%. Your $1,500 bonus, or $1,500 of residual income, is equivalent of $240,000 in a bank account earning 7%. So really, really powerful numbers. If anybody's husbands are on the fence, have them call me, because that's what brought me in. That and all the amazing health benefits that we've seen our family benefit from, these just incredible oils. But the company really does have an amazingly beneficial and just amazing compensation plan all around. With doTERRA, we know that there's 6 different ways to be able to develop and earn and continue to grow that residual income, but it is so powerful. So similar to the case study and the example that I gave you, when somebody decides to stop getting up and going to work, even though there's not necessarily a formal office with doTERRA, the paycheck does not stop with residual income. So where other people would retire from an employer, they don't go to work, they're trading time for money, that employer is going to stop paying them. So residual income works differently, and it's so powerful. And that's why it takes a little while to get it going, but once you do, it is so incredibly powerful. So this is the webinar. I'd encourage you to go look this up. Dave Ellis and the Power of Residual Income, and it will be the best 30-40 minutes that you spend, especially if your spouse is on the fence about this business or anything else. We all have different motivations and different things that we focus on, that we really see our niche and how we can help people going forward. But he does just a great job to be able to explain and dive a little bit deeper and into more detail about how powerful residual income is and how amazing this company and the benefits that we have the privilege to work towards are. Okay, let's work towards wrapping this up. You're probably wondering what I mean by refinance your finances. Well, hopefully the next 5 minutes or so you'll have a little bit more clarity on that one. Refinance your finances. We're really involved right now in a money revolution, and we just have to look and think a little bit differently than our parents and our grandparents did. And the reason I say that, you're probably thinking, what are you talking about? Really, it's not me. You have to tell yourself that old saying, if you ever had a relationship, if somebody said, really, it's not you, it's me, they're right. It's us. The responsibility has shifted 180 degrees, and it has entirely changed. We're in charge of our money more now than we ever have been in the past. And it's not necessarily a bad thing, but the odds really are against us, because we talked about in the beginning, there's very limited education, very good critical life skills that ever come in any of our formal education revolving around our knowledge and just what to do with our money, just basic, simple concepts. So we really are at a time where we need to be educating ourselves. Times have changed, and our parents' plan and our grandparents' plan, where they received the pension from a company after working for a number of years for that same company, it's really, really different. People change employers quite frequently. 401ks are here, not pensions, and that responsibility has shifted immensely. If you're not working and have your money working for you, it actually could be at a spot where it's working against you. So a little bit more on refinance your finances. This is what I mean here. We take the time to take a look at everything else in our lives. Every few years or less, for some people, you're probably getting a new smartphone. We take the time to refinance our mortgages because we understand that that's going to save us both in interest and time and lower our payment. Most of us believe that it's really just going to help for a lot of these different things that are common to kind of look at every once in a while. But we often hesitate when it comes to refinancing our finances. And on average, this is a pretty recent estimate that I did some calculations and helping people to refinance their finances and looking at things like your health, your home and your auto insurances, your insurance plans, that first circle there, looking at your deductibles, where things are. Have you filed a claim in a while? Looking at retirement plans, the bottom bubble, 401ks, IRAs, and then looking at short-term savings, emergency savings, and tax returns. On average, usually a savings of about $200 to $300 a month. So that can help significantly if we're talking about moving towards something to be able to pay down debt faster, or setting up the savings account that you're worried that is too small or you haven't started. And there's a lot of ways that can go to help you. An extra few $100s a month can make a big, big difference And it's really a concept of, like we talked about, building a foundation. And it's a brick by brick concept. It's not something that's going to happen overnight. I have 7 kids, so trust me, I get it. Life happens. When we have a plan or a success formula for our money, and that pay increase comes, or the business gains traction and now we're enjoying a better cash flow, if we have set up the proper foundation based on these timeless financial principles like we're talking about, and like we've covered today, then you'll build a beautiful mansion on top of that foundation. But it takes a little bit of time and education to be able to do it right, but it can be done. Like I said, it happens brick by brick, not overnight. But that consistent effort over periods of time is going to yield fortunes. And everybody's definition of success is a little bit different, but I want to read this to you. Distractions come from all sides. It may take longer than you wanted, it to, but our personal timeline is not the same as our divine purpose here in life. Keep looking forward, eyes on the prize, and you will succeed. Success is the result of hard work and unwavering commitment and consistency towards your goal. I appreciate the opportunity to share this with you today, give you some insights into really some timeless concepts of the financial world, and hope that you found this beneficial. I wanted to give some exclusive offers to the EO Movement team for anybody that this can benefit. I'm happy to invest my time if you're willing to invest yours and help you with any of these things that you see on your screen. Like you see on the quote at the bottom, depending on where you are in your financial journey, I'd be happy to help with any or all of these, depending on where you are and what your goals are. We can take a look at customizing a budget for you. I have an auto totaling budget worksheet I'd be happy to send out and make available. Debt and protection worksheets, and then along with that, a debt elimination and protection plan. If somebody did send back those worksheets, I'd be happy to do that free of charge. A refinance of your finances, and that would be digging a little bit deeper and be a little bit more time intensive, but it really truly is worth it, and it can help for not just the immediate, but the short, mid, and long-term future. A life insurance analysis and family protection plan, if that's something you've thought about in the past but wondered if you had enough, don't have enough, if incomes have changed, if you needed to add new beneficiaries or update beneficiaries, just to make sure that those amounts are accurate for your lifestyle needs, taking care of the family, we'd be happy to take a look at that. And then I have an email campaign that I'd be happy to send out that has some really great tips. They include just 2-minute short little videos, nothing product specific, nothing educational. It is just for your benefit about the power of compound interest, the rule of 72 that we touched on, and a few other topics, the impact of taxes, and a few other topics. If you would like those, then for any one or any of these things, be happy to send those out. And here's my contact information. If you have any personal, financial, or insurance questions, here's my direct email. And then if you wanted to request any of the information that I just showed you on the previous slide, my assistant Lisa will be happy to pass that on to you. And just wrapping everything up. Perfect. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for your time. And I wish you the best on your financial journey. Take care.